YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back. In today's video, got an interesting one for you guys. Going through every single NFL team and giving them a secret weapon you should be ready for the upcoming 2019 through 2020 season. Could be offense, could be defense, it even could be rookies. Just a player that people really aren't expecting to play the way they're actually going to play. So that's where I'm coming up with these. A lot of good ones here. And we also have plenty more of these types of videos on the channel, plenty more to come, rankings, and then in season we have full NFL coverage with recaps on every single week, straight up picks with other members of the Goat House, score predictions, power rankings updated each and every single week, and more. So you're not going to want to miss that. You're going to want to subscribe. Click that notification button on. It'd be much appreciated if you could subscribe. And click that like button. Check out our Twitter in the top right. Also a link in the description. Let's start with the Cardinals. And it's a rookie. We're starting off with a rookie. It's Andy Isabella, the rookie receiver out of UMass. And they're really high on him. You know, Kingsbury loves this kid. And he fits his offense, Kyler Murray offense. And even though they have a ton of receivers, they're going to use him a ton more than you would expect from, a rookie receiver that's not only, not a first rounder, a little undersized too. And, some people may doubt. So I think, I'm not super high on him. I wasn't really, I liked him. I think he was a good prospect. I wasn't super high on him. So I'm not trying to say, I think he's better than everyone else thinks. Not trying to say that. I just think they're going to use him constantly. And he can be used in any situation. And they're almost going to force it a little bit. Not that it's a terrible thing. It's going to be a good duo for a long time there. But a guy like Akeem Butler, who I actually had higher on my board than Isabella, he's not going to be used in every situation in this offense, in this particular Kyler Murray Kingsbury offense. Isabella, they are going to force it to him, and it may work out. And it would not surprise me, and this is maybe a little surprising to some, it wouldn't surprise me if he led the team in receptions or yards or both. It really wouldn't surprise me. I don't think it's going to be an insane amount, but it's definitely a guy that people know about. It's not a super secret, but I think he's more of a weapon and more of an impact than people realize right now. That's kind of my take. And this video isn't sleepers. I did a sleeper video for every team, a breakout player video. Those guys maybe should make an impact. A sneaky guy that maybe can make an impact. These guys I think will make an impact and are also, doubted a little bit maybe. The Falcons, I got Itoh Smith, second-year running back. They lost Tevin Coleman, so it's a big role. It's a big role for Smith here, and he was impressive last year, especially in the goal line, which I really wasn't expecting. And then they got Deonte Foreman, who constantly gets hurt. Not saying he will, but his role is big, even if Freeman is healthy. Really, his role is bigger than it was last year. So. I think he could end like I'm saying, he could end up being the starting running back too. So he's definitely a weapon out of the backfield too. I think he can really, like I said, I was surprised by the goal line back he was last year at times. And that's kind of added to his game, so he can pretty much do everything else. So I think he'll be used more than people think, even if he's not the starting running back, and he can be used in multiple different ways. So it's somebody that maybe you should pay attention to a little more. That's basically what this list is. Guys that maybe should get more attention to them, because they're about to make more of an impact than you think. The Ravens, I want Miles Boykin. There's a long list of guys you can go with the Ravens here. There's some hype coming out of camp already, practice already for Miles Boykin. And, they do have a first-round receiver who I expect to be better than Miles Boykin, obviously, is Hollywood Brown. But people know that's their top guy. That's the number one weapon. That's the guy to be scared of. That's the guy to game plan against. Miles Boykin, not a crazy stat line for Notre Dame, but he was very good. Can catch, can run routes, but people really aren't expecting too much from him. I think he gives you a little more than you expect. He's a good, I was about to say he's a good outside receiver because he's good on the sideline, but he can play in the slot too. And I really think he's already their second best receiver. They're hyping him up. I know it's early, but they're already hyping him up over there. But like I said, you can go to multiple different guys. Pretty much. Look at that defense. Losing C.J. Mosley, Kenny Young's going to step up, and he was already good last year. People don't realize that. So Kenny Young would have been another one. I guess I could have chose there. I want Miles Boykin, though. A lot of hype around him. I expect him to be their number 2 receiver. I really do. The Bills, I went with Dawson Knox, get another rookie here. And, Croft already dealing with some minor injuries, but Knox I think is more of a weapon. And then what people don't realize, what people sleep on him about, is his blocking. He actually can block as long as he's healthy, because he did miss quite a few games in college. But I think he's going to be a bigger part of their offense than people think. So that's why he is their secret weapon. Definitely one to look out for. Could be Devin Singletary. I think Devin Singletary needs to work on a few things based on his tape. I think he needs to hit the hole a little better for him to be an every down back. And saying if McCoy possibly gets hurt again, misses some time again. But I thought Dawson Knox was the right choice here. Panthers, Curtis Samuel. A lot of hype from him already in camp. He's looking good. And he's been one that really hasn't lived up to the hype. People kind of died down on his hype. Coming out of Ohio State. People always hype up those guys, and he looked good there. So people are kind of dying down, labeling him. I don't want to say a bust, but maybe not as good as we thought he would be. But I'd say wrong. I don't think he's gonna be anything crazy. But I think this is the year, and it makes sense. It makes sense that it would take him a little bit, because don't forget he actually used to be a running back. He had to make the adjustment to receiver. Not only make the adjustment to receiver, make the adjustment like everyone else has to do still from college to NFL while changing positions, really, which he did play a little receiver at the end there for Ohio State. But he's looking good, looking like he's improved, really worked at it. So this is his time, and he's definitely going to be used. It's not like I guess he's a breakout candidate too, but it's not like he's a sleeper. We know what he's capable of, but I think he has more than that. So him and DJ Moore for the Panthers should be fun. The Bears own Cordero Patterson. This is like a definition of a secret weapon here. This is like the ultimate one on the list, I think, because the thing with Patterson is, he's been an excellent kick returner. That was nothing. There's no secret about that. In the special teams game, even on punt team, he is excellent gunner as well. So nothing there is very secretive. It's his game on offense, really, what it was. And every time he pretty much touched the ball since he came in the league, anytime he touched the ball, whether it was a handoff or a catch, he seemed to do very good things with the ball. The problem at receiver, he couldn't really read defenses, couldn't really run routes. He can run straight pretty fast and catch the ball downfield. That's not a problem. And then, so the problem was he couldn't be a number one receiver, or starting receiver, because he really couldn't figure out the defenses, couldn't figure out the routes, So they had to use him in special ways. But then that kind of led to coaches overthinking things and, basically saying every time he's in the game, he's getting the ball, it's becoming obvious, even though he was still doing pretty darn good, even when it was obvious. But why he's the secret weapon for the Bears? Because people are kind of just used to him just being a special teamer impact, and people, coaches not wanting to use him too much because they think it's predictable. But he's on the Bears with Matt Nagy. Matt Nagy is probably, he's got those special plays. He's got the trick plays more than anybody in the league. He will know how to use them, know how to hide him, and I think they brought him in there for a reason. So I think that's a good example of a secret weapon. But the Bears, I thought of one on defense too, is Bilal Nichols, who I think will be the starter there, who was just a rookie last year out of Delaware. I think he'll be the starter. I think he can make a pretty good impact. So, people other than Bears fans probably don't know Bilal Nichols. He will be an impact this year. So the Bears were a good team for this video too. There were some teams that I really liked, get a couple options. Some teams I did not really like. The Bears were a good team for this. The Bengals went with Jermaine Pratt. If you didn't watch our draft videos, Jermaine Pratt was my guy of this draft. Every year I have my guy, and which means a guy that I'm much higher on than everybody else. Not pretty much everyone else, everybody else. And it was Jermaine Pratt. And last year actually happened to be Jesse Bates. So the Bengals ended up drafting my guy 2 years in a row. So it's pretty wild. We'll see if they go for a third. If they go for a third, then I think the Bengals front office is watching my videos or something. We're going to have to look into that. But Jermaine Pratt, when I put on his tape, I was blown away. This guy's everywhere. This is a definition of a secret weapon, from a defensive, really from a linebacker perspective here. He does everything at the linebacker position. He is a former safety, so we know he can cover, and he's shown he can cover at the linebacker position. He's got the athleticism, the speed. He got after the quarterback, too. Some really good pressure, and he was a tackling machine leading NC State in tackles. He's all over the place. All that on top of the Bengals need linebackers very, very badly will make him get in there, be a huge impact. he's gonna make a big impact for the Bengals, and that's why he's a secret weapon. People aren't expecting this third-round pick or whatever to be anything special, but I think he will be right away, as long as they give him the chance, which I expect him to. The Browns would be next. Janarion Avery, another one of those linebackers, kind of like Jermaine Pratt, but this guy's already kind of proven it a little bit. We've only seen 1 year, but proven it in the league. It's a guy that, not always going to start, but can come in as a linebacker and a non-pass rush linebacker and be a pass rush impact. Get after the quarterback, get the pressure, could cover, pretty good tackler too. So, I mean, this is kind of the guy you look over the Browns starters, you don't really see Avery, but he makes a bigger impact than you think. It's definitely a guy that you can't really forget about when game planning for the Browns here. The Cowboys is next, and it's Dalton Schultz. People already forgot about him. He was a 4th-round pick just a year ago. He's supposed to be the tight end of the future there. They drafted him for a reason. Missed some games last year. I think I think he's more of a weapon than people realize. I think they're going to use him more. I know they brought in Jason Witten. The more tight ends, the better. The ones that know the offense. Jarwin was pretty solid last year, but they're not just going to forget about Schultz over there. They're just not going to forget about him, so I guess no one else really should forget about him either. So I think he'll be an impact tight end position this year for the Cowboys. Broncos is next. Courtland Sutton, I think, a pretty obvious one here. The reason being is pretty good rookie year, but you could have had better. People maybe, not worrying about going against Courtland Sutton at the moment. I think even though Flacco, I think, is on a decline, I think it's a perfect quarterback receiver fit. The style, and I think you can use Sutton in multiple different ways. I think they will. They'll kind of open that up this year with his second year. So you can't really forget about Sutton too much. He could be their top receiver even with Emmanuel Sanders there. The Lions. Devon Kennard is what I went with here, and I really like this choice because I like the linebackers, these types of linebackers. You already saw me use a few of these types of linebackers, and with 1 year under Patricia, they kind of got something going. They got something going a little bit there. Kennard's probably his weapon, on the defensive side. He's a very good blitzer, really got after the quarterback, and he's not a pass rush linebacker, kind of like those other guys we'll talk about some more of those type of linebackers too. So I think second year of Patricia, I think we can expect some pretty good things, and from a linebacker that people don't really view as maybe the better of the group for the Lions, but he very well could be. And another one right here with the Packers, a division rival of the Lions actually, and Oren Burks. He's going to step up for them. He's going to start, in my opinion. And he's another one of those linebackers that brings a bit of everything to the table. Blake Martinez is the other linebacker there, and people really know more of him. When they think Packers middle linebacker, they play 2 of them, by the way, Blake Martinez, because he racks up the tackles. He's a good tackler. He's pretty good at reading plays. But Oren Burks has more to his game. He can cover downfield, and he can bring pressure to the quarterback on blitzes in different ways. So I think Burks, people maybe outside of the Packers fan base, maybe a guy you don't really know of, it's a guy you should know of. That's why I like this video. I guess it's for the fan bases if you're not a Packers fan. It's just a guy to watch out for. And out of the Texans, Deonte Foreman is the guy here. I think they will use him almost as much as Lamar Miller, as long as he's healthy. People just think the Texans, they think Lamar Miller is pretty much the guy. They lost Alfred Blue. They've been kind of going to their backup running backs for a while now. It just seems like, but you just forgot about Foreman. Yeah, you got injured a couple years ago at the end of the season, not last year, but the year before. But I think he's ready to come back. I think he's a pretty darn good running back if healthy. And they will use him. Even if Lamar Miller is the starting running back, they will use him. He will make an impact. For the Colts, Taekwon Lewis is another good example of this because he's a guy that has experience playing inside and out on the defensive line for the Colts, or just in his career, really. He can get quarterback pressure and he can stop the run. They got pretty good depth over there for D-line. They don't have anybody elite maybe on the D-line, but they have a lot of good players, a lot of guys that can ball. And Taekwon Lewis is a guy that you should get familiar with because the more and more he's learning, this NFL defense and what his position is, the better he will be. So it's definitely a guy that can make an impact. The Jaguars, DJ Chark, former LSU receiver a year ago, and then didn't do a whole bunch as a rookie. He's athletic. You expected maybe a little more from him. Now they got Nick Foles. Now he's in his second year, and he's a good weapon. He's speedy. He can catch. He'll burn some people downfield, and special teams he can be an impact as well. So it's a guy you can't really forget about here. He will be their secret weapon. I think people are sleeping on the Jags receiver unit. They don't have anybody great, maybe not even anybody close to great, but they got a solid group of guys here. They got a unit, I think. So DJ Chark's definitely the one to watch out for. Chiefs, Carlos Hyde, hard runner. You always got to respect how he runs. Just so angry. Always love that. And I just don't think that went away. There's no way that went away already. He still got it. And going with this Chiefs, it's a great design. The offensive line scheme, the offense is just well designed here. And running backs thrive in this offense. And I think, Damian Williams being the number one guy, he can do a lot. But Carlos Hyde, can come in whenever. There's not a set time where he's going to come in. Like, it's just whenever. They're going to pound the ball. They may even throw him the ball. It's just, people can't sleep on Carlos Hyde now. It's just because he had a couple off years. He'll be good on the Chiefs. Now we're to the Chargers. I tried to do the Chargers a little earlier by accident there. Artavis Scott. Hearing some good things about in camp already for him. And don't forget, they lost Tyrell Williams. Somebody's got to step up on that depth chart there. They like to use quite a few receivers. And the guy that will step up is Artavis Scott, who was a darn good receiver for Clemson. Pretty good college. Pretty good football school there. Especially receivers, too. And I think he steps up. He almost can pass Travis Benjamin, I think. I think he really can. He's definitely a weapon. Very quick and run routes. Just get the ball in his hands, too, and he can make something happen. So I think he'll be used more than people think. So it's a guy to look out for here. The Rams, Darrell Henderson, I love this one, too. People just think of the Rams, and they got Todd Gurley. They got the best back in football. And I think he is the best back in football, if 100% healthy and used as much as he can be used or should be used. But at the same time, they can limit his snaps a little bit. There's a reason they drafted Darrell Henderson, who was my number 2 running back in the draft out of Memphis. They're going to use him a lot. It's not going to be a secret for long. He's going to be a real good running back for them right away. The Dolphins, another running back here, Kalen Ballage. I heard they already like him. There's already talk about him possibly taking the starting role. I don't know if that happens week 1 from Kenyon Drake. He showed improvement too. But he's definitely going to take some snaps, some reps. He's going to get a lot. I can see a split. I can see an even split there. And Ballage, what I like about him is he's a pretty strong back, can break some tackles. But he has more speed than you think. Actually, he probably has a lot more speed than most people think. Just, looking at him or see how he runs. Once he's in the open field, he actually can run. So, and now he's in his second year. I just think he's more of a weapon than people realize. It's not just Kenyon Drake over there. The Vikings, Irv Smith Jr., the tight end they drafted in the second round. That's a new style tight end, the athletic tight end that can block, though. We saw him in that Bama offense. And they got a pretty good tight end unit over there. They got Rudolph, who everyone knows about already, and they got David Morgan, they got Conklin. So they got a good unit, but I still think Irv Smith, makes a huge impact. I think he's their secret weapon. Looking at what they're doing in practice and just kind of what I thought even before that, I think they go with, their 2 receivers, Diggs and Thielen, and I think they go instead of a third receiver most of the time. They will use more than 2 receivers a lot, but most of the time I think the 2 receivers and the 2 tight ends, Kyle Rudolph and Irv Smith, and David Morgan comes in and blocks. I think that's what they do. Irv Smith can play on the line, but he can play out. He can play pretty much anywhere outside slot or wide out. So I think he will be their secret weapon this year. Patriots, N'Keal Harry. It's really who else could I go with here? My number 1 receiver from this past draft class, and I think it'll be a huge impact right away. And people kind of thinking, he's a guy that struggled to get separation a little bit. He's fast, but not crazy fast. Maybe it'll take some time. And maybe the Patriots don't really like using the rookie guys like this. I just think that's wrong. I think he'll make a huge impact. I think he's more of a weapon than people think. I think he can be used in multiple different ways. He can play in the slot, play outside. He can block. I think he can run any route. It doesn't really matter how much separation he gets. He can get separation. It doesn't really matter how much he gets. Tom Brady will get him the ball. And then losing Gronk, I know it's a different position, but some of those targets will go to N'Keal Harry. Those ones where Gronk was never really wide open. It's kind of just Tom Brady had to put it in that area, and then Gronk having the strong hands and the catch radius was able to bring him in. I think N'Keal Harry, even though he's on a tight end, not going to be playing the same position, I think he can do something similar there. The Saints, it's going to be Latavius Murray. This is a good one. I like this one because people think, I lost Ingram. It's time for Kamara, which is kind of true. It's really Kamara's time. But they lost Ingram. They brought in, Murray. People act like it's some huge difference, and I would strongly, strongly disagree. I think Murray is just as good as Mark Ingram. I really do. What Murray was able to do with that Vikings terrible offensive line was very, very impressive. So I think Latavius Murray is capable of being a starting running back. So having him and Kamara and having Murray in the backfield, while they don't forget, they still like to put Kamara out wide, and they're still going to do that even though they lost Ingram. It's because they got Murray for a reason there. So I think he's more of an impact than people think. Don't forget about Latavius Murray. The Giants is going to be B.J. Hill. Another one of those prospects that I really liked in the pre-draft process last year and made a pretty big impact for them last year. The Giants didn't get a whole bunch of sacks. B.J. Hill got a good amount of them. I think he got 3 against the Chicago Bears, who had a pretty darn good offensive line too. That was just in his rookie year, where he really didn't start instantly as soon as the season started there. So this is a guy that can continue to get better. It's a good defensive line, actually, for the Giants. Maybe not the best team. It's a pretty good defensive line. Another one I thought of was Sam Beal. They drafted from the supplement draft last year but got hurt, but nothing guaranteed with him. To me, B.J. Hill will be an impact as a secret weapon here. The Jets, it's going to be Ja'Kai Polite. We've got a rookie here. You look at this Jets defense, and, they're lacking some pass rush, but they draft Ja'Kai Polite for a reason. I think it wouldn't be crazy if he started, maybe not week 1, but near future starting. And he's got the pass rush traits. And it's been probably good he doesn't start. He's a very good rotation guy, I think, day 1, because he could work on run stopping a little bit, but he's got some really good traits and moves as a pass rusher. So when he comes in on passing downs, he will make an impact. Do not sleep on the rookie because he wasn't a first rounder. Actually, was a first round talent according to my board, and I think some other people's boards as well, I'm assuming. So don't sleep on Ja'Kai Polite. He will make an impact. The Raiders, it's got to be Arden Key. Thought about Max Crosby here too, the rookie, because I'm just seeing some hype on him, seeing some good clips from him in practice. Doesn't really mean a whole bunch, but it's good to see Max Crosby looking good already. But Arden Key, kind of like we talk about Ja'Kai Polite, like he wasn't a first rounder, but he was a first round talent. Key is pretty much the same thing. Pretty much most of his career at LSU, he was kind of known as a future first round pick. There's a reason for that. We didn't see a whole bunch of great things from him in year 1, but with time in the NFL, time with these coaches developing, Arden Key is going to be good. He's going to be good. He's going to make an impact. And people look at the Raiders and what they get 13 total sacks last year, which is just absolutely pathetic. They just think they got nobody. Anybody currently on their team before the draft and free agency is nothing. Is what the average person or less is probably thinking. But Arden Key can play. He will make an impact. The Eagles, another rookie receiver, be J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. And this is a good one, too, because, I think their starting receiver set. And this is kind of another Alshon Jeffrey. I think a little more athleticism, too, a little more speed. And he can kind of sub in for Jeffrey, but they also, I think, they'll make ways to play them both at the same time, which it'll be kind of tough to have corners to match up on both of them at the same time. And that's why I think Whiteside can be a darn good impact. The Eagles in the red zone will be scary. That will be very scary. He'll be used a lot in the red zone. Even though he was a rookie, not a first rounder, I think people usually expect those first rounders. That's why the first rounders aren't really secret weapons. They're kind of just weapons. I think the other ones that you don't expect too much from early on, I think these are the secret weapons. Steelers, James Washington, very obvious one. A guy that can be a breakout player too. Breakout player not just for the Steelers, for the year. He's got to step up. He's got a big role to fill here, being that number 2 receiver. I liked him a lot a couple years ago at Oklahoma State. Fits the Steelers' offense so perfectly. So he will work out. He'll work out. They can throw the ball pretty much anywhere. He's got some top-end speed there once he's got the ball or once he's going down for the ball. So I think Washington, in the amount of time the Steelers throw the ball, he will be a weapon. People think about Juju Smith-Schuster. Don't forget about James Washington. Seattle's going to be another rookie receiver, DK Metcalf. I'm starting to feel this. I'm starting to feel that. He was my number 2 receiver in the draft, but I'm starting to feel that that Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf will work out early. It's not going to take too much time. Maybe he won't be on the field every down. He won't run every single route, but he's still dominant even when it's coming. And I think people were hyped on him about his 40, but then once people started realizing that he had the injuries and that he's not quick, he can't really turn for his routes. He doesn't have a good break at the top of his route. I think he went from getting insane hype to most people just ripping him, and that's where we're at now. People just doubting him, just think he's a depth receiver. He's more than that, I think. They will find ways to use him. The Niners is Salomon Thomas, a little bit risky going with this one because he hasn't lived up to the hype. A guy that I really wasn't super high on in the pre-draft process, which I got ripped for. But even though I thought he'd be much better than he was now. But I think it'll start to work out now. I think I like what I see in camp so far. Again, you can't base too much off that. I think they'll use him in different ways. They kind of were just sticking him in one spot. I think they'll use him. I think they can use him inside and out. I think he's perfect. He's perfect where Buckner is. I know that's Buckner's spot, but it's a good rotation if they can find ways to use both. I think that's his position. I think they have the same exact position that perfectly fits them, and Buckner's obviously the guy. But Thomas, even if it's rotation, which I expect to be, I think he'll make an impact. I think he'll get after the quarterback. I think this is a time where he'll start to figure it out, and people kind of just forgot about him, saying it didn't work out. They tried to trade him. We don't really know for sure they tried to trade him. It was just maybe he was on the block. That kind of happens a lot. We don't really know if it's 100% accurate or not. It makes sense that it's a guy that could have been on a block. A good prediction that's a guy that could have been on the block because hasn't really worked out. Maybe doesn't fit. They changed their defense a little bit now. I think he's where Buckner's going to play, right in front of D Ford there. In opposite of Bosa. I think that's his spot, and he can actually fill in for Bosa too. He actually can sub in for that spot. So he can play either spot, and I think he'll step up this year. I really think so. He's a good impact rotation guy. The Buccaneers, Chris Godwin. People, not a super secret. People know about Godwin, but I don't think they realize the impact he's going to make. He's legit. He is legit. They lost some receivers there, obviously, with Humphreys and Deshaun Jackson. So Godwin, even bigger role, looked better last year, and he's going to look better this year. People really aren't game planning for Godwin all that much. It's Mike Evans, but Godwin really could. He's not Mike Evans, but he could be. It could be a close enough impact to him. And then we got the Titans. I wanted Jonnu Smith. Before he got hurt last year, they were using him in different ways. The tight end you can get the ball to in different ways. You can even hand him the ball. He's pretty darn athletic. Pretty fast in the open field. And they got Delanie Walker coming back, so it's pretty much everyone's like, yeah, Delanie Walker's one of the top tight ends, and that's what we got to worry about. I agree with that, but Jonnu Smith isn't really his backup. He's just like another weapon on offense, and I think that's where people go wrong there. And then the Redskins will be last. Like this one a lot. Cole Holcomb, another rookie. I love this draft pick. He was kind of my sleeper there for day 3. Because I think he's another one of those linebackers that's just a weapon. He can do everything. He can cover, he can tackle, and he can get after the quarterback. He's a freak athlete too, and I think that's a reason they got rid of Mason Foster, which I'm still confused about a little bit because he was pretty good last year, but. And they know they have guys that can step up. Not necessarily saying Holcomb will start in his spot, but he will. Even if he doesn't start, usually you see middle linebackers. The ones that start, they are just linebackers. I'll say, minus the pass rush linebackers. Everyone but the pass rush linebackers are pretty much in their position the whole game. They don't really sub out too much, but. A guy like Holcomb, you definitely rotate in because he's one of those guys that gets pressure on the quarterback on top of the other things he does. So it's definitely a weapon, definitely a guy that you bring in there, even if it's a day 3 rookie, day 3 pick rookie. So excited to see a lot of these young guys, and then we'll see if any of these end up being the secret weapon of the year for each of these teams. But that's going to do it for this one. We'll have more of these types of videos. We have plenty on the channel already. More predictions and rankings to come during the season. We'll have full coverage. So hopefully you can join us for that. Hopefully you can subscribe to the channel. Be much appreciated. That's going to do it for this one, though. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Goodbye.